Welcome to another week of a friendly nudge. Well, it's finally getting soup weather in Central Texas, which is fantastic. So, what we're going to make today, it's kind of got a long name. It's a lamb-based soup, but it's cannellini beans, cabbage, fennel, tomatoes, chicken stock, onion, Italian seasoning, salt, and pepper. So, I guess we could call it a lamb and cabbage soup. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to use a whole head of cabbage, a half of an onion, a fennel bulb with the big stems chopped finely, a can of cannellini beans, a can of diced tomatoes, a quart of chicken stock, a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, 2 pounds of lamb, fat pinch of salt, and a fat pinch of coarse ground pepper. And, what we'll do is get started is to get that thick stem out of the cabbage, the core. And I use a paring knife for that. You can use the chef's knife. It just feels a little more, manageable with this. And once I've got it all cut loose, then I just smash it on the cutting board and get it out. And then, what I'm going to do is just cut this thing in half so I've got a flat surface to work with there, and then just start cutting it real thin. I'm going to do this the same way I do onions and everything else. Cut it thin and then cross cut it. And just, I'm going to put the whole head of cabbage in there. And then same thing with the fennel. I'm going to cut that very end off, and then everything else I'm just going to try to cut it fine. And then, I'll cross cut it as well. Just so that the being able to cut it smaller like this, the flavors are going to permeate. And that way, too, you're going to get, a bite of the ingredients you're looking for in every bite of soup. I'm going to pull the fronds off, and we're going to cut those up real fine and use those as a topping. They add kind of a anise flavor. So, and then, this is the way I always cut the onions. I know some people would cringe on this. I don't do the traditional dice method. But I like because it this way gets the onion cut really thin. And we're just going to get all this prep done before we start the cooking process. That's that whole mise en place that you always hear people talk about. It's like it gives you a chance once you start cooking to focus on that. And I think this, for me anyway, this is kind of a mindful process. I just kind of get into the prep and then I can start the cooking. Instead of trying to cook it all in one pot, I went ahead and used a skillet because I've got, 2 pounds of ground lamb. I want to get it, browned before I try to put it in the pot. You're just going to get the seasoning on there. And then once I get it almost done, it's going to cook some in the soup. So that way I went ahead and got it mostly cooked all the way through. And I'm going to add the onions in, kind of get those started to sweat. And then I will add the cabbage. And because there's such a volume going in here, I'm not trying to brown anything. That was the cabbage and the fennel. And then we're going to go ahead and add, I just went ahead and put the rest of the salt in there. This is probably a couple of teaspoons of salt. And then a fat pinch of pepper. And then we're going to go in with the Italian seasoning. And that's probably a tablespoon. Get that stirred in a little bit, and then we'll add the other ingredients. Because with this much volume, then we're going to have to let all this kind of come up to a boil. So that's the can of tomatoes. And I went ahead and left the juice in. The stuff flying off is the seasonings that are still on my hand. And then we will I'm going to add that whole quart of chicken stock. So you don't have to watch the whole thing going in. And then we're just going to get it all stirred up. And once we've done that, we just got the flame turned up to where we can get it, kind of start to bring it up to a boil. And then we'll turn it down to a simmer. I'm going to go ahead and add the lamb in so it all cooks together. We get all those flavors to permeate. And then, we've had it up to a boil. I think I'll let it go for probably about 10 or 15 minutes because we just want to get the cabbage cooked through. and then we will, come in for the final. This is a yogurt that I make. I followed Dr. Davis's super gut process for making homemade yogurt. And to get it all good and stirred in together, added those fronds. This stuff is absolutely delicious. You guys have a wonderful week. And man, I'm going to say it. You got to play with your food. Y'all take care.